Yeah! What is up, y'all? My name is John Devine, and I am the host of the Healthy, Wealthy People podcast, the show that educates on the three most important pillars of becoming a strong, well-rounded individual: our health, our wealth, and our authentic expression of self. I am incredibly excited to be back for a third mic melting season of bringing y'all the best personal and business development information anywhere on the internet. As always, before we get started, I would like to take a moment to personally thank you, yes, you, for investing your time with me today. And I ask that if you do find any value in today's episode, which you will, that you do us both a favor and subscribe. All right, let's get into it, y'all.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to episode 2 of season 3. And today we're going with more of the wealthy theme. One story that people have been dying for me to tell is the purchase of our new home, because people who were close to the situation know that it was wild, but I just haven't told the whole story and all the details of everything. And it was a giant story of good negotiation. So we're going to talk today about negotiation, which is probably one of the only ways to truly build wealth, because whenever you're building wealth, you're usually building it with other people in some way, shape, or form. And so in order to do that effectively, you have to be able to negotiate and make sure that you're putting yourself in win-win scenarios. So if you're a listener of previous seasons, and if you know me at all, you know that one of my frustrations with society in general is we just use words that we don't know the definition of, and so people are misspeaking and misquoting all the time. And so I like to start with the root of what we're actually talking about. So for negotiation is the strategic alignment of interests under tension. So what a lot of people don't like about sales and negotiation and deal making is they can feel the tension, but it's a necessary tension, okay? Negotiation is the structured conversation that determines who gets what, when, and under what terms, okay? So literally just a conversation about how our relationship is going to move forward. If you're going to get married, there should be negotiation there, right? And we can talk about that more later, but it's two people talking about what they want out of life and coming together to help each other make that happen, right? That's a negotiation. So most people think that negotiation is about price, right? Not the case at all. What you need to know is negotiation is actually about leverage. And when everybody thinks about leverage, they just think of the main piece of leverage, which is who has the better alternative options, right? Because that allows somebody to walk. But there's two other forms of leverage. You have time leverage, right? Like who needs this to happen quicker? And then you have outcome, which is who has more at stake, right? Like if you're trying to pitch a business to somebody and you're asking them for $100,000 investment in your business, and there's a chance they might lose that $100,000, they have more at stake in the loss of that, right? So you just have to understand those three leverage points, because that is what negotiation is about. Price is simply the visible surface, right? Everyone thinks like, oh, the price, right? What does it cost? How much is... Yeah, that is just a determinate number for perceived value that's going to be traded. What we're actually talking about is who's got the risk, who's got the leverage, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is tell you guys a story of what we went through with the moving out of our house, turning it into a rental property, selling it, buying this house, like that whole process, because the entire thing is riddled with the points I'm going to teach you guys about negotiation. Okay, so To start, we were just leaving Kalispell when I stopped the podcast, as we all know. So I did a podcast episode about buying my first home with my lender at the time. And so you guys can go back and listen to that process. But I, as a business owner, was chasing the market in the Flathead Valley for 3 years. By the time I was like, yeah, I'm ready to buy, the market had outgrown my income. And so the banks basically laughed and went, well, dude, you got one option, go make more money, right? And most people, they hear that and they're like, well, that's what I did. I went out and made more money. I came back, we made a bunch more money. And they were like, yeah, man, the market outpaced you again. So next year, make more money. We did it again, right? So we just kept chasing the market before we ended up buying an extremely overpriced house based on where we lived. But we finally got that house, okay? And that one was more just a story of like chasing the market, working hard, making more money, growing businesses, like all that. So if you want to hear that, you can go back and listen to that podcast episode. But then we decided to move, okay? And we only lived in our home that we bought for a year. So we bought that house on a VA loan, and it was a 0% down loan. There's a few stipulations when you do a VA purchase. One of those is that it has to be your primary residence for at least a year. So right at the year mark is when Kelly decided she wanted to move to Coeur d'Alene. So we were only in that house for a year, and we ended up turning it into a long-term furnished rental property. Furnished because we needed to get out of the house so fast, and we thought that it would be more rentable as a furnished property. But one of the episodes I'm going to do coming up is going to be on, running an investment property. So I'll get into more details on that later, but turned it into a fully furnished long-term. We actually wanted to do Airbnb because we go back to the area so much that we thought that would be the way to go, where we could still use the property. But in our HOA, you can't do short-term rentals. So ended up doing a long-term rental. We had one client for a year, and then our second client had only been in the house for like 2 or 3 months. And so we had been in this new apartment in Coeur d'Alene for longer than we were in the home that we owned. And that's one thing I didn't want. I wanted to be able to make a pretty quick transition and get myself into another house, get my family into another house. So I was already upset at the length of time it was taking us to fully settle and get integrated and all that. And so by the time our second tenant went in, we were at a place where we were like, okay, we could sell, right? So we decided we were going to go on the market looking for a house, which means we needed to sell our house because it didn't make sense to refinance the loan, keep the rental property. And again, we'll get into this into a later episode. But we needed to free up the VA loan so that we could use it again on a new purchase. So we were just selling the house. Selling a house takes time if you know anything about selling a house. And so we put the house on the market almost immediately. Our tenants jumped and left, right? The uncertainty was too much for them. And some other details that, again, I'll talk about in a later episode. But they left the property almost immediately. The house was on the market for 8 more months. So now I'm floating my whole life in North Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, and still floating a mortgage payment that in a house that nobody's in, right? And keeping the water and all that stuff on so pipes don't freeze, et cetera. So, yeah, all of a sudden we were in a tight spot. And one of my best friends is my realtor on the place. And he's like, yeah, man, the market's just dead slow right now. And we had only been in the house for like a year and a half. And so the market, as soon as we bought at the absolute peak on the way back down, which is where we were, the house had lost quite a bit of value in the amount of time that we bought and were already moving. So we were going to take a hit on the place, right? Like, irregardless. However, just to like kind of get close to breaking even, we needed to sell for more than we bought for because there was no equity in the house. We didn't put a down payment on, all these different things. And so we had to list above market just to be like, yeah, we don't have a lot of negotiating room. And so we listed way above market, wasn't moving. We lowered it to around where like we would potentially still break even, probably still put a few grand in. And we were still above market, so we're not moving. And I'm getting on my realtor like, dude, we got to do something. We got to make something happen. We got to make a move. And he's like, yeah, man, I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's houses in this neighborhood, exact same house, bunch of duplexes, very cookie cutter style for our first house. And so there's houses, the exact same layout, everything in your neighborhood, and they're like $30,000, $40,000 less. And I'm like, dude, I can't go that low. Well, with a VA loan, this is where negotiation starts to come into play. With a VA loan, another veteran can assume your loan at the rate you signed. So we signed at a 4.5, and that was in 2022. At the time we were selling, the rates for VA were 6.8. So to assume a loan at a higher price with a lower interest rate ended up being a better deal in the long run, right? So we had to shift to veterans. However, you still got to be able to qualify for the house, and there's a lot of other things at play. Like, you got to find the right person. How do you market to strictly a veteran, get them in, look at the house? And so the other reason I'm telling this story with the negotiation part that we're teaching today is it's a trust the process thing, okay? Those of you who know me know that I don't pay full price for anything, but at the whole time that we're trying to sell this house, we're actually looking to buy a new house, and we're looking in North Idaho and Eastern Washington. I didn't want to live in Eastern Washington. I wanted to be in Coeur d'Alene. But when we were looking at new build houses, when you buy a house that's in the $600,000 to $800,000 range that's new build, apparently they can do things like not put gutters on, not put blinds in, sometimes not put appliances in, not do the landscaping, and it's the same price as other new builds or even custom builds that are a couple years old, and they don't have to finish the property. And I'm like, why would I spend that kind of money to then just spend another $100,000 getting gutters and blinds and doing landscaping and buying appliances? And it doesn't make any sense. I'm not buying a new build that's not done, and they're just like, that's the way it's done. So a lot of houses that we really liked, I wouldn't buy. I was like, no, absolutely not. And then we come across this house in Eastern Washington, the house I'm sitting in. And when I see it, I'm just like, oh my God, it's a custom build that's now, I think, 5 years old, has every bell, whistle, everything for the same price as the new builds in North Idaho. And so when I saw this place, I walked in the door and I yelled full price offer. And I had no business putting in a full price offer. I had no business putting in an offer at all. I couldn't get a loan because I was still in my other house. So it's called a contingent offer. If you've never done this before, it means I'd like to put in an offer. However, it depends on these other things happening. And again, we'll break some of this down in negotiation. But I walk in, I'm like, full price offer. However, it's got to be contingent because I still need to sell my home back home. And if you know me, like I said, I don't pay full price for anything. I love negotiating. It's always a win-win when I walk away, but I just love working with somebody to find a better deal, a better situation for both parties, whatever. So for me to offer full price, the only reason I offered full price is because I had to put in a contingent offer. So I knew I had no real negotiating strength because it was like, hey, here's my offer. However, I have to wait until I can do this other deal before I can actually make good on my offer. So you have no real power to negotiate on. You're basically asking for a favor in a negotiation by putting in a contingent offer. So knowing that is just negotiating skill in and of itself, right? But again, I had no business putting in an offer because there was no movement on our house at all, right? And Kelly's like, what are you doing putting in an offer on this house, especially full price? Like, what is going on? I'm like, I don't know. I want to wake up here. I want to live here. This is the house. We've been looking, searching probably about 9 months to a year. We had been actively looking on the market. Nothing made me feel like this house did. So feeling is a big part of this whole process as well, right? But I just trusted, like, if I start moving on something, something's got to move, right? So sure enough, we put in the offer. I text my realtor back in Montana and I go, hey man, this needs to happen. I just put in an offer on a place, so we gotta make some movement. He's like, what are you doing? So within 48 hours, we have 2 veteran buyers interested in the property, right? So trust the process. Now we've got 2 interested buyers. We start pushing the process down. One of them drops out almost immediately. Another one we find out is a single mom, recently divorced, needs a place, blah, blah, blah. Her mom's going to be living with her, so she's got some extra income to use. We start learning because my realtor is double ending the deal. This woman went by, saw the property, reached out. She didn't have a realtor or any representation, so now he's going to double end the deal, which is way better from a negotiating standpoint, okay? So we know that, we have 2 parties that really need to make a move right now. They're motivated to make the move. But she started being like, I just can't rationalize spending, $30,000 more than the house right down the street. So we had to bring up interest rate. 4.5 is what you're assuming. 6.8 is what it is currently. Every month your payment is going to be this much higher. Are you planning on staying in the house long term? Yes. Okay, well, over the long term, you're going to spend way more than $30,000 in this piece of property in interest rate with the extra 2.3% interest you have on top of it. So she really kind of drug her feet on that for like a week and a half, which in terms of buying a house is so much time, right? So we're sitting there waiting, she ends up deciding, okay, you guys are right. Let's go ahead and do this. So we do that, and she ends up, because it took so long to get the process done, she had to be out of her place, and the deal wasn't done yet. And she was like, oh my God, can I rent the house from you for a month? Which carries a lot of risk, right? If something happens, the paperwork doesn't work out, XYZ, there's a lot of risk held on the property owner that they could just become a squatter. Now you're struggling to sell the property to somebody else because somebody's squatting in there, and could be a whole thing, right? So we just trusted the process, trusted her. She's a veteran, single mom, blah, blah, blah. And so we said, yeah, we'll rent the place to you for a month. So the deal was going to take another 3-4 weeks to finally close. We rent her the place, which is good. That's another month I don't have to carry the mortgage, right? I've already been carrying it for 8 months at basically $3,000 a month. It's a big chunk of change that we had already put in, and someone was going to take over that payment. Great. Let's get that off our back. And now I have a deal for these other home buyers on this contingent offer that's, hey, We have the deal. It is in process. We're just waiting on paperwork, all this. Okay. So while this all takes place in May, Kelly and I have decided not to renew our lease in June 15th. Well, the paperwork's not going to be done on time. And then with the VA transaction and some tax stuff from the previous year, we actually couldn't make a move for 90 days. We couldn't move in and legally buy the house with paperwork and all this. And we had already done our final walkthrough of this house. Like, we were just waiting on paperwork. They taught us how to use all the appliances. They moved out of the house. And then we find out we can't make a move for 90 days. Now everybody's in a tight spot. I'm closing this deal. This is good. But over here on this deal, we now have a situation where we have homeowners that have moved out. They're getting ready to move into their next place. They need money for the next place. We can't close the deal for 3 months. We aren't going to move out of our house, or we are going to move out of our house, in a few weeks, June 15th. We're not renewing our lease. So this is all just falling apart in front of everybody. Not the deal I have in Montana. That one's fine. We're closing. She lives there. Everything's good. However, on this side, we're dealing with some stuff. And to add to all of this, the sellers, the people who owned my home previously, they're Russian immigrants. And so, number one, communicating with them is more difficult. Their son was always involved. But number two, in a real estate transaction, they don't like the seller and the buyer to communicate. The realtors communicate to the sellers and buyers, and then they talk, and then they go back and communicate with their respective parties. So as this is all falling apart, my realtor, who's a fairly new realtor, comes to me and basically says, John, I'm so sorry. I think the deal's dead. And they wanted more earnest money to try and keep the deal alive for 3 months, which I said no to, because earnest money doesn't do anybody any good. It actually just hurts me. It shows them that I'm invested in buying. But I already told them I'm invested in buying. I'm going through this whole process. So you have some earnest money. Like, that's, if it was going to be in your pocket or something and it was going to benefit you, no. So like, the negotiations were just like, look, I don't think this deal is going to work. Well, when we did the final walkthrough, the son is the custom home builder that built the house for his parents. So he gave us his card and he said, hey, if anything ever goes wrong with the house, just reach out to me directly. I'm the guy that built the house. Like, I can fix it for you. Don't worry about trying to bring somebody else in here. Great. So as the deal's falling apart, I go, if I call the son, that's not technically calling the homeowner. He owns his own home. He's got his own life. That's the home builder. However, he's also the translator for me when we're in the house because the parents don't speak great English. So I call the son and I go, hey, man, I'm sure you've heard, but this deal is absolutely falling apart right now. And he goes, yeah, I know. And I go, okay. So I have an idea. From what my realtor has told me, I don't think your realtor is giving all of the options that I'm trying to give to make this deal work out in the end. So I see 3 scenarios as we move forward, okay? And I just want you to take these scenarios to your dad, tell him this is the future that I see if he agrees, and then see if we can work something out. He's like, okay. I'm like, scenario number 1 is this deal blows up, but it's not going to blow up. And I mean, over 3 months worth of waiting, I'm going to live in this house. This deal is going to blow up because we can't figure out a way to extend the deal for 3 months. Now, quick side story. The only reason we even came to look at this house is because Kelly saw it on the market like a year prior, but it was $850,000. It might have even been higher than that. And that was outside of our price range, what we were willing to spend. It's over double what we paid for our last house. But we wanted about, double the space. So we were trying to find what we wanted for the right price. she knew I was either going to love or hate this house, but she also knows that I don't like window shopping. I don't like looking at things that I can't buy. Like, yeah, it's great for motivation and dreaming, but like, I can't do anything about this right now. So she didn't show it to me at 850. Well, it came off the market. It came back on the market at 800. This house is a absurdly custom build. I'll do like an MTV crib style walkthrough video for you guys or something, and put a YouTube video of it out. But you have to have just the right taste to want to buy this house, and it's Kelly and I's perfect taste. It looks like we custom designed every piece of the house. So because of that, it was hard to move on a market of buyers who don't have that taste in a time where the interest rates were through the roof. So it comes off the market. It goes back on at like 800, stays there for a while, goes off the market, comes back on at like 750, goes off the market, comes back on at 699. That's when Kelly showed it to me and went, do you want to go look at this house? And I walked in knowing all that information already, knowing that it had come down over $150,000 in price. I knew I was getting a custom build for a great deal, blah, blah, blah. It's my exact taste. So I was trying to capitalize on them having a hard time moving such a custom piece. So I said, scenario number one is this deal doesn't work. It blows up, right? I walk away. However, I'm not walking away. I'm going to have this house. If it hasn't moved off the market and interest rates aren't going down, it's not going to move over the next 3 months. So scenario one is it blows up for now, which brings us to scenario two, which is that if it blows up and I come back, now I'm not paying you $700. It obviously hasn't moved in 3 months at $700, so now we're going to negotiate, and I'm not on a contingent offer. So the offer I give you next is going to be much lower, right? So maybe you sell at $650 after some negotiation, and you lose $50,000, and you have to float the mortgage over the next 3 months. Scenario number three is the one that I pitched to my realtor to pitch to your realtor that I don't think actually got pitched. Scenario number three is that in order to solve everyone's problem, I'm ending a lease in 2 weeks. I need a place to live. I'm not extending at this place. I don't want to move into a new place, then move again in 3 or 4 months when we close on this place. It's too much. I just want to move once. So I would like to rent your parents' house from you. We're going to be halfway through June. I want to rent it for half of June, all of July, all of August, and then in September we're going to close, and they're going to get their $700,000. Okay? Then they aren't carrying the mortgage for 3 months. They still close, and if I'm living in here, they can use that rent money for whatever they want now, right? They're going to pay the mortgage, but I know what the mortgage is going to cost me at a $700,000 purchase. I know that my mortgage and their mortgage are not even close to the same number. 21 interest rates versus 25 interest rates. You guys did a custom build. You built the house. They didn't have labor costs there. So the mortgage I'm going to pay them for the next 2.5 months is going to more than cover their mortgage and some extra income. So those are the three scenarios that I see. Call your dad, let him know, let me know if he thinks something different. Calls his dad, calls me back like 10 minutes later. My dad's like, he accepts, you can move in June 15th. We're already out. He just asked, please don't hang any art or put any major holes in the walls just in case something doesn't work out. I said, deal. We won't hang anything. And that's exactly what we did. We moved in, we kept the art on the floor. Everybody got what they wanted. Also, when you're buying houses, I just love to negotiate, right? So on the first house when I bought it, I tried to lowball them on price, and the markets were strong. It was in the seller's favor, and they were like, no. And I was like, okay, I want all your furniture and your espresso machine specifically. And they were like, no. we're not giving you the espresso machine and you can't have all the furniture. However, you can have the master bedroom set, you can have the couch, you can have the fireplace entertainment center, you can have, some stools. So they left quite a bit of stuff, right? That furnished our house for a while. We added some stuff to it, but then we kept that house fully furnished. And this house is twice the size of my other house. And I had the stuff from my apartment. So I was like, I don't know how we're going to be able to fill this house. So when I went to close, I tried to negotiate furniture. I said, I want all your furniture. And they also said no, but they let us keep all the TVs and sound systems. There was 2 in the house. They let us keep some carpets, some outdoor furniture, some indoor furniture. I specifically wanted their washer dryer. They wouldn't let me have that. So they ended up leaving the furniture that they promised they would. They were moved out of everything else already. We got out of our apartment. We got in, and everyone got what they wanted. They got out of their house that they had been sitting on for a year or more, continually dropping the price of. We got the house we wanted. We only had to move one time. The person who bought my house got what they wanted. I got what I wanted and got out of that house, freed up my VA loan, helped a single mom get into a house. So all the way through that process, you can see nonstop negotiation happening between realtors, buyers, sellers, family members, like nonstop negotiation to make sure everybody gets what they want. Negotiation isn't something to be feared. It's something to understand so that when you are in a position of wanting to buy something or wanting to sell something, you can structure it in a way that both parties do truly win, okay? All right, y'all. So through shooting this episode, ended up being way longer than we intended. So we're going to split this into a part 1, part 2. Part 1 being the story that I just told you about, everything from buying my first house to turning it into a rental property to selling it, buying this new house. That's going to be part 1, kind of teeing up why negotiation is important and how it's used in our day-to-day life through me going through that whole process. Part 2 is going to be the actual nuts and bolts around giving you something teachable that you can use in your life around negotiation. So coming back in 2 weeks, as per usual, we're going to talk about 3 things. The 6 power dynamics of negotiation. We're going to talk about 7 tips for successful negotiation from Johnny D. And number 3, we're going to talk about 5 common mistakes that people make when negotiating. So before we take off, I want to ask you guys for a couple of favors in order for us to help continue to grow the show. Number 1, follow and subscribe so you guys never miss another episode. Number 2, drop a like on this show so we can hack the algorithm. And number 3, I need you to share the show with your friends and tag us at healthy.wealthy.people and John Divine Inc. That's INC, so that they have the same access to this type of life-changing information that you do. Now, get out there and enjoy the pursuit of the healthiest, wealthiest, most authentic version of yourself. And I'll see you right back here for part 2 in 2 weeks on the Healthy, Wealthy People podcast. Peace.